These are your adventures as you explore, seeking out new life and civilizations, expanding your borders and exploiting the resources you find, befriending allies, or exterminating the foes that get in your way.
Contact detected entering sector. Configuration unknown. Assessing. Initiating countermeasures.
Oh, that's right, I'm back. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Star Trek New Worlds, and thank you for joining us live here on Saturday. The production has been rebuilt. What do you think? Slight little changes. Let me see if you can catch them. Noting a couple of little things right off the top. Everything's a little bit changed, and there'll be some minor changes as we go forward here as I polish and perfect things as we go. Latest subscriber down below, you'll see a scrolling number of names, which are the most recent subscribers. And there'll be some slight little changes as we go from screen to screen. If it's your first time here and you're wondering what in the world is Star Trek New Worlds, it is a turn-based strategy game that we play here online with you today on Twitch and not Facebook. Tried Facebook, didn't work. YouTube live. We play this using or inspired by the rules of Federation and Empire, as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. And the map that you will see here momentarily is produced through the magic of Vassal. Today's episode, we are talking about the New Horizons campaign, and we are catching up with everybody on turn 47. The big thing, as you saw, is first contact. Initially, just between potentially the Carnivons and the Klingons, but they are not the only faction who has bumped into somebody in the dark of the night. Multiple factions are making contact with their neighbors, so let's find out some more. Before we get started in that, in those details, let's say hello to our folks in the chat, already at double digits. Thank you very much. We have Bill Smith in the house. Eugene starting us off with the, as always, latest and greatest summary. Update time. What empires have met? What deals have been made? What monsters have come to distract the Empire's leadership? Who leads an EP? What alliances have been formed? Ready for updates? Oh! Thumbs up. That's right. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already tickled the YouTube algorithm in just the right way. Paul Williams is in the house. Woo, woo, woo. Still hiding from you all, he says. We've got Lost Muskrat. Hey, Smitty. Big, slow target. It's all about building the YDN, right? Wow. Just can't build those. And more. All right, let's jump back into the stream whenever chat decides to come back. All right. Well, let's rock and roll and start talking about the map and who's next on the show. Here we go. All right, slightly different layout here. You let me know what you think. All right, we're starting off here with the Lyrans. This is the Lyran faction. We're going to start off with EP and Fleet Cap, as always. So I'll put them over my head here, just a little bit easier to see. You can see that the Lyran economy is at 43.5. which, of course, when we think about some of the other campaigns, it's a paltry sum. But for this campaign, that is smack dab in the middle of what is good, so to speak. The LRN fleet is a total of 30 ships with a 65 attack and 150 defense. Not too shabby. As we scroll through the rest of the factions here, we'll see how good that really is. Okay. So as you can see here, the P-bean shape is in full display, glorious glorious form. But we have something that has been discovered on the west, as the Pet Shop Boy said. Go west, the west coast of LRN territory. We have size class 4 warp signature. What is a size class 4 warp signature? Well, I'm glad you asked. It is in this game, ships are broken into different size classes. Essentially, the bigger the number, the smaller the ship. I know it's a little counterintuitive, but a size class 4 ship is something in the vein of a destroyer and or a frigate. So, small ship on the outskirts of known space, a sensor reading in the dark. The convoy has, I guess, picked up this errant signature. Nothing really in the neighborhood. Interesting. Well, if we take away the ships briefly, we can see that the LRNs, that is, have made contact with a Riemann faction and a Gorn faction on the East Coast. So the Riemann faction, I think we've talked about this before, but they have 4 planetary ground bases and a YBS in full effect and stereo sound. They have a Triton fleet in place. Let's just take a quick look at their minor Empire fleets. Okay, woo, look at that. So this is a W-era fleet with the KD3, KD3 Plus, and so on. So we have a command cruiser, a cruiser, and essentially a destroyer, two destroyers and 2 frigates, so to speak, plus a convoy. So it would seem that this Riemann faction is under the sway of diplomatic efforts by the LRNs to be able to bring them over to their side, hence the diplomat and the YCA on top of this planet. Whereas the Gorn, no love for the Gorn. They are meaning indifferent. They're not happy or sad with the LRNs, but they do have a slightly more robust fleet with a total of 3 destroyers, 6 frigates, a light cruiser, and a command cruiser, but all in the Y era. As a reminder, the Y era is the second level of our 4 levels of technology. The first baseline being the W era, which is where those KD3s come from. Then the second is the Y, which is pretty much where all the players are at. Then the next is M, or the middle era. And then after that is GW, the Great War. All right. So we have those folks in effect. Oh, I didn't see. Oh, yes. Well, the Riemanns are happy plus, which means they are on the cusp, the verge, the precipice, you might say, of joining the LRN Empire if the LRNs are so lucky to be able to entice, romance, seduce, a little foreplay, you might say, in bringing those folks into the fold of the ever so comfy sheets of the LRN bed, you might say. Yes, a little inappropriate, Tony. I will move on. So here we are. Yes, warp signatures on the West Coast. The P-bean continues. The exploration around the edges continues unabated. You've got the small exploration freighters in the north with a little YSR survey ship support. You got some survey ships on the East Coast. You got a couple Ys and a couple Ws there. Also in the sort of the bottom of the look at that. I'm going to just close that out. Here, let me just quickly slide back to a different screen so I can close out that little pop-up that's showing up. So while I'm doing that little fidgeting on the side, tell me what you think about the LRN position. Who do you think could be coming over to say hi to those silly, crazy LRNs? Do you think that a size class 4 ship is something they should be concerned about, something they should be taking any effort to deal with? What would you do in that situation? But let's slide back to our good friends next on the docket, the Hydrons. Now, here we go, the Hydrons. Now, first thing I notice right off the bat is the Hydrons have established themselves as I remove a ship. a trade route with this wonderful Riemann faction at the south of their territory. Before I get too far, let me hit the fleet cap and EP button so that we can all see how well the Hydrons are succeeding in this campaign. We have 42.5 is their economy, which isn't too bad, but on the lower end of the spectrum. They are a 38 ship fleet with 83 attack and 167 defense. Interesting. If we, again, just keeping the ships off the map, we can take a look at their base structure. We have a couple bases up in the north here, which are creating a little bit of reach. An interesting exploration pattern, the S-curve, you might say. We've got some a YDK in the top left corner, and a smattering of YBSs in various spots. Now, very interesting to note here, again, and this is something we saw in the Splintered Will campaign, and something I'm very interested to see how it's going to develop in this campaign. We have seen from almost all the factions a distribution of maximum supply technology for all their different bases. When they build bases, they build them at the edge of their supply. Now, why would you do that? Of course, you're doing that because you want the maximum amount of reach to be able to go out and explore space. Totally understand. What happens when you bump into somebody? Now, one of the features, I should say, of bases, especially in the W and Y era, is they are one of the only units you'll have, with the exception of one faction, that has electronic warfare, or EW. Now, what that means is that they have special sensors. These special sensors allow extended reaction range. If you don't know about reaction range or what extended reaction range grants you, take a look at our tutorial playlist. There is a tutorial there about reaction. So extended reaction range provides you the opportunity, if you are 2 hexes away, to reach out and respond to folks that come say hello unexpectedly. When a base is all by itself outside of extended reaction range of any other supporting units, then that means it's got to fend for itself, which is fine. Bases are hard targets. They're big boys. They can handle themselves. However, if you have mutually supporting units, i.e. other bases 2 hexes away with units on them, you can strategically position your support or defensive units in a way to respond and react to the actions of your enemies. Should they reach out and touch you at a hard point like one of your bases, you might have some stuff in the neighborhood that is ready to react in support of defending that unit. However, if you're 3 hexes away or more, you're SOL. So, all that to say, what's going to happen when these things happen, when these encounters occur? We've already talked about a little bit of first contact on the LRN side, and we got some more to show. So, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen with the Hydrons when they bump into somebody? When you're looking at this base distribution, what do you think? Give me your thoughts in the comments below. Let's pull up their ships and take a look at what we can see. Now, we'll notice that, speaking of YDNs, that was the start of our chat. We see that the Hydrons have built a Delta Wing. I'm making fun. They're YDN, which is a 6/8 ship. YDNs in the Hydron Empire, I would say they're great ships. They are standard, I would say, for YDNs of this era. 6/8 ships is sort of the standard. There are a couple of factions that have slightly better YDNs, but the Hydron YDN is not too shabby. So here we are, YDN, and it is supported by Hydron Home Fleet, which is CC, DD, and 4 Musketeers. Well, 3 Musketeers plus... what's his name? Why am I forgetting it? D'Artagnan. There we are. So the 3 Musketeers and company are on the homeworld. Incidentally, Musketeers are the name for the W-era frigate in the Hydron Empire. Other than that, we've got what we've already previously identified in other streams, the proliferation of their exploration fleets. The only exception to this are 1, 2, and 3, first, third, and second fleet. I believe those are different. Let's take a look. Yes. In fact, First Fleet is a cruiser, the GRN, which is the Grenadier. It is a 3/6 cruiser that is pretty standard. I'll say it's a little bit below the standard when it comes to Y era ships amongst all the factions. Many factions have a YCA or a cruiser in the Y era that is a 4 attack and 6 defense. So the Hydrons have a slightly weaker cruiser. You can see first and second fleet all have the same, and I'm gonna bet dollars to donuts. Oh, look at that. Third fleet, the one that's over here on this Y. Oh no, that's not where the YDK is. Oh, so third fleet, which is closer to where these Orions are on the corner, has not one but 2 YCCs. Note that the YCC is the 4-6 for the Hydrons. Slight little upgrade for them. And in addition, they have a destroyer and a frigate supporting. So generally speaking, we can see that the Hydrons are building some command cruisers. They've got some cruisers and destroyers out and about. So are they going to be reaching out and popping that Orion base? Looks like some kind of conflict's already happened, but we will have to wait and see. Only one minor faction that they've encountered here with Pegasus fleet. Let's just take a quick look. Perhaps. Yes. So we can see that Pegasus fleet is made up of, again, W era ships. These are the KD3, 3C plus, 3 plus, and then KF3 and KE1. These are the destroyer and the baseline frigate. I believe in the Lyrans we were looking at it, they had K2s or KE2s. The KE2s are basically just improved frigates for them. So anyways, all that to say, relatively minor ships with some destroyers, frigates, command cruiser, and cruiser for the Remans. Interesting. Okay. Well, what do you think about the Hydrons? Are they on the right path? Are they doing the right thing? What would you be doing differently? Perhaps. Let's take a look at the next faction on our docket, the Wolves of Space, the Carnivon. All right. I'm going to take a quick sip. Oh, let me just slide over and say hi to the folks in the chat. Uno momento. You can see here, Lordy, it's lawless, Bill says. Big slow target. Maximum supply strategy shifts to hard shell when you encounter somebody at 3 hexes on the inside, 2 hexes on the outside. Robin says, never need to turtle. We're all friends here. He's playing the Federation in this game. That's interesting. Hello, Big Slow Target and Robin. Trust but verify, BST says. D'Artagnan, not correct. Sorry, phonetic. Yes, of course. All right. Well, that's. I'm glad we're all sort of challenged. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I was waiting for that coffee. Thank you for the goodness, the gracious, the power that is the coffee donation. You saw that photon fired. It flew so fast you could barely make it out. Well, what happens is when you hit that coffee, when you go to that link in that bottom corner over there, or you go to that QR code that's in between me and the chat, you can fire a photon of coffee support our way. It forces me to take a quick sip of this caffeinated goodness that keeps us motivated, stimulated, and giving you the greatest updates from the Star Trek universe. Stand by as I down the hatch. All right, today's coffee is brought to you by the Big Green Mermaid that shall but not be named. I had to run out and get some coffee as we were a little bit behind schedule, so I didn't have time to wait for the percolation of our coffee generation machine. However, we are properly stimulated and motivated with a strong batch of the caffeinated brew. If you would like to support us in such the same way, like I said, coffee QR code down there to the link. You can join us at the Coffee and Discord link if you were so inclined after this show. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, not only 2 coffees have been fired. You will notice down below the progress bar has made it halfway across the screen, meaning we're 50% towards our goal for coffee for today. Let's just acknowledge that it was Lost Muskrat who fired that first photon blast, and the second was a mystery antagonist. Well, like I said, you too can head over there and support us if you are so inclined, or join us on our Discord channel for some better banter, back and forth, and chitty chat around all things dramatic and exciting when it comes to this and the 2 other campaigns that we have concurrently going in the Event Horizons constellation of campaigns. Yes, we can chat about that. We can also banter back and forth, and there's some good exciting, gamified goodness happening on our Discord channel. So if you are geeky and strategy game inclined like us, then head on over and join us there. Talk all things strategy, Star Trek, and sci-fi. It's good for you, and it's good for me. I'll take one more sip of this incredibly gracious brew that'll keep me stimulated for the next little while. Uno momento. I think it's funny. I use Spanish there when I'm bilingual in the francophone. C'est le français, mes amis, que je parle. Okay, moving on to our next faction in the universe of Event Horizons. We're going to be talking about the ISC. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got to tell you, before we even get started here, I see a lot of crippled ships. I see a lot of brutal back and forth. I see conflict, which gets me excited because, after all, this is a war game. But before we talk about who's been beating up on who, let's talk about economies and fleet cap. So you can see here that the ISC is at 39.5 EP in the menagerie of their economy. That is, as we've been talking about, on the lower end of the spectrum. In fact, one might say near the lowest, but no. There's one faction that's much lower than that, but we'll get to them in a momento. The ISC 39.5 on their economy. They have a fleet cap of 23, meaning they have 23 ships in their fleet. They have 58 total attack and 115 defense, which you'll note, for those of you who play, that is different from their fleet cap. The defense factor and the fleet cap usually shows or indicates a delta, a difference, when there are crippled ships in the fleet. So, and as you can see, there's a couple of black bars that we can observe, and that is a clear indicator of crippled ships that have occurred. So what is going on here? Well, I can see there is a YFT, which is first of all, it's a Federation ship. There's two of them here. Interesting to note. A YFT is a fleet transport or theater transport in this game. So let's just flip this so you can take a look at what that looks like. It's like a small little tiny ship. It's like a mini tug. That's the best way to describe it. And you group them together and they can do kind of tug-like missions. On their own, they can carry stuff more so than the average ship, which you can see here. This one is carrying 3 EP. Additionally, we can see there is a YFF, a Federation YFF, and some crippled ISC ships. So there's an ISC cruiser and frigate, both crippled. In the surrounding territory, we have a DD, 2 different destroyers that are crippled, a frigate that is crippled, down at this other base. What is going on? Well, if we go back, I do recall that this planet here used to be a minor faction. Now, I can't remember the minor faction off the top of my head, but I do remember it was not going well for the ISC, and they were, shall we say, unhappy with the encroachment upon their territorial boundaries. You can see here there is the planet. It is -H, which would be very unhappy. One might say hateful. And there is an Ox 0 there, which means that the planet has been devastated. This is the condition that a planet will take once you conquer it. So you are bombarding it from space, destroying the infrastructure, and leveling them into the Stone Age. Hence, devastation. Once it's devastated, it will take 10 turns or 5 calendar years in game to be able to get to the point where it can develop. So we have devastated for a period of 10 turns, and then it is developing for 4. And that developing means that it's recovered, so to speak, from the initial bombardment, and the people are rebuilding their planet. That will happen over 4 turns or 2 years, which can be sped up if you have a hospital ship. It can be reduced essentially by 50%. So, long story short, this particular ship's out of commission, this particular planet is out of commission as a supply point, as providing full EP for the next 14 turns. One thing to note, at the end of that 10-turn devastation, it resumes becoming a supply point. As of right now, it is no longer a supply point in this game, but it will provide you 1 EP, as this is a developing planet. If it was a minor planet or a medium planet, it would provide you a little bit more, but we'll talk about that when we come across one of those planets that is devastated. All right, so what we got? We got the YDN, one of the factions that has a beefier, better, more pronounced YDN. They say bigger is better, but the ISC are certainly proving that point with their YDN, which is a 7 attack, 9 defense. No, they're not satisfied with a 6-8, not like the Hydrons. No, they want to go big or go home. So 7-8 or 7-9 it is. They also have Home Fleet with a YCL here. So let's take a look at the ISC Home Fleet to figure out what is going on. You can see they've got not one but 2 YCCs concurrently on this planet. 4-7s. Now we talked about cruisers and command cruisers and other factions being 4-6 is sort of the standard amongst different factions. Notice there that the YCC for the ISC is a 4-7. So 7 defense, a little bit more robust, can take a bit of more of a pounding. Apparently that's what the ISC like to do. 4 attack, 7 defense is the YCC for the ISC. They also have 2 cruisers, normal cruisers, also 4-7s, 4 attack, 7 defense. So you can see the ISC are kind of shall we say, a harder target overall when it comes to this game. They very clearly have taken this planet, and I'm curious the involvement of the Federation, because I don't remember in our last live stream seeing any Federation ships here. So, qu'est-ce que F, mes amis? What is going on? And the only thing I can think of as to where these guys would have come from is that they came through this gravity well. Maybe? The only thing is, this gravity well is an innie, meaning the way those triangles are angled, you go through it, nothing comes out of it. So it's a one-way wormhole. So where'd they come from? Did they come from the northeast? Perhaps in between the turns, as we observe them here on the show, perhaps they crept in from the northeast. Maybe. If they crept in from the northeast, does that mean we can start to locate where people are on the map? I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. Trade, baby. Bill says, killed the Romulan world that was hostile. Interesting. So the Federation apparently engaged in trade, some kind of trade. But where are they coming from? I'm very curious to know how this is all working out on the map and where everybody is. Because at this early stage of the game, that's the question. Where is everybody on the map? Right? It's a big rectangular map and everyone's in these weird places. We do have a sense of where other people are, at least their homeworlds. The question is, who is where? I don't know. We'll have to find out. Very, very interesting. All right, let's slide back to the main screen before we go into our next faction. All right, so you too could be like our friend Bashar Lulu and be a subscriber on our show. You don't have to necessarily support us with coffee. Thank you very much for those who do, but you can just follow along and sort of be involved or be entertained by the story, the evolving roleplay that is Star Trek New Worlds. Star Trek New Worlds, again, we have a constellation or 3 different campaigns that are going on concurrently. We have Splintered Will, which was last week, New Horizons, which is this week, Imperial Stars, which is after a brief interlude, is coming right back online for the new year, and we'll have some more episodes about that, and glasses to celebrate in the new year. Let me take a quick sip out of this, because, you know, water always tastes better when it comes out of a New Worlds glass. It is harder to see this one because this is the 4X glass. It says, I explored strange new worlds. I expanded the borders of my influence. I exploited resources and built bridges to the stars. I exterminated those who got in my way. New Worlds. Yeah, you too could get a glass. You just head over to stnewworlds.com and you can... the link is on the channel. You can go head over and get yourself a glass, 2, 3, or 4, whatever tickles your fancy. But let's get back to our factions in the game. The next one up is the Tholians. All right. Big Red. That's right. Not Double Mint, not Juicy Fruit. Big Red. Big Red is here in full effect in stereo sound, and boy, do they have an exciting series of events. Now, I will admit that all the other factions we just saw are in turn 47. This is turn 46 for the Tholians. It is a turn-based game, and sometimes real life gets in the way. So right now, we're at turn 46 for the Tholians. Not much of a concern, as we're all in our isolated maps. But you will notice that the Tholians have a lot going on right now. If you look into the top right of their map, you will notice the herd of space sheep that are here. Now, I'm not familiar with space sheep. After all, I don't have Velcro gloves, and I'm not a big proponent of itchy wool. But apparently the Tholians are. After all, they are crystalline forms, and wool doesn't really bother them. Though I don't expect that the Tholians get cold. Apparently, they're paying a lot of attention to these sheep. Whatever floats your boat, whatever makes your day. We have a couple of fleets, survey fleets, in the area around the herd. I'd be curious to know what their plans are with the herd. I don't know what you can do with space sheep. That was totally inappropriate what you were just thinking, but here we are, space sheep nonetheless. So space sheep in the game, and I've heard rumor that you can herd them, take advantage of them in a resource management kind of way, and there's some kind of EP that you can get of them. So I'm looking forward to our GM Daniel filling in the gaps. It just keeps sounding worse the more I talk. Anyways, nonetheless, more information about what happens with space sheep would be very interesting. But that is not the only interesting thing happening on their map. No, we have on the bottom left a Y auxiliary battlecruiser. Well, it's not even a Y. It's a YA, which is like I don't even know. It's a auxiliary battlecruiser M. So this is an M, I'm assuming an M era ship of some type. Anyways, it's a 4 attack, 5 defense visitor from outer space, and it is coming to say hello to the Tholians. Now, I would imagine the Tholians, with this stack of ships on their capital, will more than likely have enough to say hello and manage this situation, but nonetheless, more problems to deal with. Interesting to note the number of crippled ships that we see here, not only the crippled YDD over by the space sheep, but the 1, 2, 3 YDDs and a commando ship that is crippled on their homeworld. What happened? What's going on? What is the conflict that initiated or crippled all these ships? Let's take a look at the Tholian new fleet, excuse me. Tholian new fleet. So what's in Tholian new fleet? Well, I know you can't see that. Here we are. We have a cruiser, a YCC. Notice the YCC is a 3.6. Again, not the most robust of the Y-era cruisers. And we have 4 DDs, or Y-era destroyers. So what happened? We certainly have enough ships sort of on the homeworld, in addition to new fleet, 3 YDDs uncrippled, actually 6 YDDs, uncrippled. You've got crippled ships, and those will be easily repaired, and away they go to go say hello to this random ship that just kind of popped out of nowhere. But by no means is that their second and only combination of hurdles. They have, the Gorn over in the corner here. Happy Plus, though, so I'm imagining there's some good things happening there. You have the Remans over in the corner, indifferent, couldn't care less about what's what's happening with the Tholians. And then on top, because the Orions always like to be on top, there is the Orion Pirates, which are sitting here. Now, generally speaking, the Orion Pirates don't really disturb too much or cause too much of a ruckus, but nonetheless, Orion Pirates here on the northern part of their border. What are the Tholians going to do with this Orion base and or these other minor factions? Lots of options, lots of items on your menu, you might say, when it comes to the Tholians. You've got the space sheep and what they're doing to manage that situation. The visitor from outer space, which is this mysterious battle cruiser. And minor factions, Gorn and Reman alike. And, not to be outdone, the Orions riding on top. All right, with that said, I saw some big chitter chat in the chat. Let's slide over and say hello. All right, so Bill is saying Tholians, the Tholian Interstellar Zoo. Well, apparently that is something that could happen. In addition, Big Slow Target says sheep, not people, can be escorted to a homeworld or possibly other facility where they can be shorn, as in like trimming the fur, for varying EP per sheep, depending on the size, assuming they work like in ITV. So in another campaign, not related to the Event Horizons, the new, let me try that again. The Event Horizons constellation of campaigns, those 3, we have sheep can be used in that way. So different GM, meaning it might be a little different. We'll just have to double check with our GM, Daniel. He says, that ship that popped up out of nowhere were attributed to the APKAS, the Andromedan, Paravian, Kazinti axis of secrecy when it happened in the Klingon Empire. Interesting. Okay, so apparently there's an axis of evil out there involving the Andromedans, Paravians, Kazinti that are, or at least interacted with the Klingons, and apparently are now interacting with the Tholians, according to Big Slow Target, which he may be biased. Just saying. Disinformation can be information one way or the other. All right, well, that's interesting to note. Something to think about when it comes to our different factions in the game. Let's slide into, we're talking about these guys. I somehow skipped them. Let's talk about the wolves of space. The dogs in the pound, you might say. The faction that is in the thumbnail. Let's talk about the Carnivon. All right, here we go. This is the Carnivon in brain just decided to stop working. Love it when it does that. Yes, this is a Carnivon in Event Horizons. And let's pull up their EP and fleet cap. You can see here that the Carnivon have a economy of 62. Yeah, we were talking about the 40s and the 30s with those other factions. No. 62 for the Carnivon. Yeah, no big deal. No big deal. You know, more money, more problems, I say. They have a fleet of 50 ships with a total attack factor of 110 and 219 defense with a fleet cap of 225. Remember what we said before, when you see the delta or the difference between the fleet cap and the defense factor, usually is an indicator of some crippled ships. Well, let's see if we can find them. All right, when we look at this big map, you'll notice that off on the right, that little guy off there, the Carnivon have explored a gravity well. Looks like the Bravo gravity well that's located right here. They sent a ship through. It popped out the other side, and it is off exploring. So we don't know, based on this little map, where it is, but certainly the player in-game knows exactly where that little guy is located. So we'll figure out what's going on whenever we start to bump into each other and they show up on the big map. So that'll be interesting. Their alpha two-way wormhole has not been traversed as of yet, or at least we don't see anything, which means interesting that the one-way wormhole is a little bit more secure, right? No one's going to come through it, but the two-way wormhole, a little more concerning. So they're being a little more cautious when it comes to that. Interesting to say, considering the Carnivon are the biggest, so far, that we've seen today, biggest economy in the game, and certainly have one of the largest fleets that we can see. When we look at the rest of their map, I know I'm not addressing the elephant in the room, but let's talk about the Remans first. The Remans over in the corner here, you can see that they are friendly. Interesting that there are no diplomats on this planet, yet the Remans are friendly. They have Acropolis fleet. Let's pull up the minor fleets. And you can see that, they've got KD4C. This is the Y era variant of those ships we saw before. Not the 3, but the 4 is the Y variant for the Remans. So we got KD4C, KD4, so Command Cruiser, a couple destroyers, which are the KF4s, and then KE2s are frigates. So combination of ships there. And like I say, they are friendly to the Carnivon. Interesting. There is, of course, the Gorn as well, who are unfriendly. They do not like what's going on with these dirty dogs of space, but they only have W-era ships, and I should say not only. They have a W-era command ship, which is this battle cruiser. It's like a W-era dreadnought, but it's really weak. It's a 3-6, which is a poor man's cruiser in this game, one might say. YDD and 2 YFFs, plus, of course, planetary ground bases for them, and a YBS. But they do have a diplomat on that planet trying to improve relations, so that's a good thing. Yeah. We do have this derelict up in the top end of their territory, which is interesting. Unknown mystery space Hulk. What is it? What's going on? We don't know. Carnivon are going to have to let us know what is the result of their exploration interaction R&D on what this derelict is. We won't know until they know. And of course, it would seem they don't know yet, unless they're going to tell us in the chat. You follow along. But let's talk about, yes, the elephant in the room, the purpose of the thumbnail, or the subject of the thumbnail, I should say, which is this little guy. Hello, size class 4. Size class 4. Interesting. We talked about the LRNs with size class 4, so it's a destroyer or frigate, something like that. The LRNs had it on their western side. This is also on the western side of the Carnivon. So these are not the same. These are different interactions. The LRNs had one ship. This is one ship. This one ship has detected, or could possibly detect, the ships in these two hexes. So there is one YSR. Now, this YSR is a cruiser-size hull, which would be the equivalent of a size class 3 vessel. Oh, look, there's another YSR, size class 3. So we're looking for something in a future map that has 2 size class 3 sensor readings on it. Let's keep looking. But nonetheless, we have 3 of these YSRs pushing hard to the west. Interesting to note. And also, I'm just looking at supply. 1, 2, 3. It looks like they're at the edge of their supply for the Carnivon. They're going to have to build some tugs or supply points or whatever it is to be able to reach a little further out. This particular base is being completed, so it'll have a reach of 1, 2, 3. Still not be able to reach where this slow size class 4 vessel is. Interesting. Okay, so that's interesting. But let's take a quick look. I'll take away the ships real quick. We can see that there is a YDK being completed on the Alpha wormhole. We talked about this base here being completed, extending supply out to the west. Again, looking at the distribution of bases. Oh, there's also a base up here in the top corner being completed shortly. But again, looking at the distribution of bases, the Carnivon base construction schedule and the locations of is very not mutually supportive. Maximum range on the exploration, generally speaking. So that's an interesting strategy. We'll see how that develops or how that sort of manifests going forward. It'll be interesting one way or the other. But if we look at all the ships, boy, do they have a lot of ships. We've got Home Fleet and Wolfpack 2, which are heading over to where this size class 4 thing is. Let's see what... They've got the Wolfpacks, so we'll put that in the corner here. Wolfpack 2. Okay, so we got a total of 5 frigates. That's not nothing, because 5 frigates at this point in the game is, not nothing. And then we've got Home Fleet. Now, this is interesting. They have cripples in this. Where did these cripples come from? What happened that caused these cripples? We've got a YDD and a couple of ground or commando ships, meaning they have, you can see the G there, they're ground-like battalions that they can deploy to attack. So I'm curious, if I take away the ships and the bases, I don't see any oxes, like any devastated planets. So where and how were those ships crippled? I see chat showing up. Slow ships are typically freighters, convoys, etc. Interesting. Oh, sorry. That's a very good point. I didn't sort of recognize this as I'm skimming through. Slow SC4. So slow. I apologize. In the past, I've seen instead of looking for the slow SC4, which is right there in front of my face, I've usually seen it as a note. So the SC4, right, slow-moving SC4. So what does that mean? In this game, you have fast and slow-moving ships. Slow-moving ships, typically freighters, convoys, and things like that. Those types of ships are disadvantaged in combat. They can't run away as quickly as a WY or any kind of warship, basically. They're slow. And they typically only move 1 or 2 hexes on the map at a time versus the 3, 4, or whatever it is, 3, 4, 6, I guess, for the different tech eras in this game. This particular unit, and I apologize, not looking obviously enough, it is a slow SC4, which probably means, interesting, that it's a convoy or a freighter. I'm going to say it's a freighter. Like a size class 4 freighter is probably a small exploration freighter. That's my guess. Big guess. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's it. That's an exciting little thing. So, again, lots of ships. I see cripples, but I don't see where they came from. Maybe they interacted with the derelict. I doubt it. Very interesting. But one of the things about the Carnivon here is that the Carnivon have one of the biggest militaries in the game. It'll be very interesting to see how the Carnivon leverage that as we go forward. So let's take a look at the chat because, some interesting things just came up. All right, so we talked about Big Slow Target and his axis of evil. And there's indeed, all our research points are that way. Robin, yes, the APCAs is very active in Federation space right now. Interesting. The APCAs. So this is a thing that's apparently happening in the rest of the game. And we'll get to this guy's faction in a moment. But interesting, APCAs. Okay. When inspected by the Carnivon Navy, it appears that the derelict can potentially be refitted and used as a warship. Oh, sorry, I missed the first part there. Carnivon crippled ships are in the home fleet and were sustained while conducting anti-piracy operations. Boy, you've got some active pirates, my friend. Yes. Okay. So this derelict, what kind of warship can it be? Is it just like a cruiser? Is it going to be advanced in technology? Is it going to be like a dreadnought? You let us know. It'll be very interesting. Daniel says, ships can be, slow ships are typically freighters, convoys, etc. Right. That was my poor observation of the slow SC4 on the map. So interesting to note. You can't be petty. Hello, all. Welcome back, petty. Paul says, I've been attacked by these ships too. So the axis of evil or secrecy is apparently active in different parts of the map. Very interesting to observe. Okay. Yes. All right. Well, we've done so far we talked about the LRNs. We've talked about the Hydrons. We've talked about the ISC. We've talked about the Carnivons and the big red Tholians. Who else do we have on the list? Well, it seems only fair that we not hide away from the big factions anymore. Let's slide into the counterpoint to the Federation, the big bad Klingons. That's right. Here we are with the big black mamba himself, the Klingon faction. Let's pull up the EP and fleet cap and see what's going on here. Okay, the Klingons, you can see, have an economy of 65.5. Again, we were talking about economies in the 40s and 30s, and this is 65.5. Good God, gracious me. Wow. Okay. Again, I mean, I can make a joke about the color of this faction, but I won't. The Klingons have a fleet of 41 ships, 96 attack, 205 defense, matching their fleet cap, so no crippled ships. Interesting to note, the Klingon faction doesn't really have a lot of offensive firepower when compared to, and this is relevant, the Carnivon. Why is that relevant, Tony? Well, have you seen the big white elephant? There's two of them. That's right. The east coast of Klingon territory is quite, I don't know, populated by unknown sensor readings. Remember what we said about those survey ships, that they were cruisers. One might say they are size class 3. Well, there's one and 2 size class 3 sensor readings right here next to a YFEL. YFEL is a slow-moving exploration freighter. I'm going to just take a sip while you think about that. Obviously, not a lot of thinking needed, but we can tell who's who in the zoo here. Right. So the Klingons have quite a bit on this side of the map, as you can see. They've spent a lot of their time and exploration in pushing east. Well, they've bumped into somebody, that's for sure. And this faction is, well, right on the edge. Now we can see, I'm not going to dive too much into all the different fleet groups because, well, those two are interacting with each other. But let's say we've got 2 fleets over here. We've got the Tholian Border Squadron and Apocalypse Fleet, along with a base and a tug. We've got another tug, not 2 hexes away, which is looks like completing a base as we speak. 2 YFELs in the vicinity, a YFEL up north, another YFEL a little further north, and some other auxiliary freighter type exploration stuff. So there is a concentration of bases being built in sort of an echelon here. Interesting. And the concentration of military forces, again, I'm not going to say what's in Tholian or Apocalypse Fleet, but, well, we'll just have to see. I will note that when I go back to fleet cap, the Klingons only have a 96 attack factor. Just saying. Carnivons are arguably the largest military in the game. Something to think about. Klingons historically have been quite aggressive in various games that have been played. Granted, somebody has been playing them. So, in this game, how are the Klingons going to be played? Are they going to be peaceful? Are they not going to ruffle feathers? Certainly seems that way when it comes to the exploration of their combat capability. But the Carnivons, I mean, wolves are territorial, right? Are they going to bark up and intimidate their territorial boundary? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I mean, apparently, I don't see any phaser fire as of yet, but we'll have to see what happens in the coming turns. But let's digress and talk about other aspects of the Klingon Empire. We look down south, and we can see we've got a D4, which is a cruiser, doing some random exploration, a YFEL, large exploration freighter, and North Fleet. Now let's take a look at Klingon North Fleet. Duras. Hello, Duras. North Fleet. Boom. That is a, you can barely see it there. It is a Y-era exploration cruiser, thank you. Exploration cruiser with a prime team embarked, so that's doing its thing there. So we got a little exploration activity at the edge of supply range here. Note here this particular tug with a YFES, that's a small exploration freighter with 2 escorts. This hex is still unfogged, so as soon as they unfog that hex, I imagine they're going to build a base there based on the current distribution pattern of bases with the Klingon Empire at range 3. We've got Green Fleet here, Green Fleet, Klingon Green Fleet, which I believe is Martox, is it not? Yes. So we've got a whole bunch of theater transports, which are, you know, when you group them together, they can act a lot like tugs. Not all tug missions, but many of them. And it would seem, based on the distribution of what I'm seeing here, and I'll just take a look at Klingon Home Fleet. 6 F4s. F4s are their destroyer, and they're probably arguably the best ship in the Klingon Navy, or shall we say the menu of ships to build is probably their best ship. They've got quite a few of those currently in this vicinity. But again, keeping in mind that the Klingon Navy overall isn't very big. So as far as not number of ships, but combat potential. So it'll be interesting to see how they interact with different factions. They're just interacting with the Carnivon now. Who are they going to interact down south? It'll be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see how this evolves. And again, looking at the location, like my theory, and we'll see how good this theory is over time, that these guys are located in the northwest corner of the map. So if they're in the top left corner of a rectangular map and their exploration pattern is the way it is, who are they going to bump into, and how is that going to influence their their territorial boundaries. Again, one of the largest economies in the game. When they get to defining those boundaries, what's going to happen? Klingons have some really good ships. We'll have to see. All right. Oh, I see some. Oh, hey, Matthew Landers. Let's go over and say hi to Matthew. 1 second. All right, Matthew Landers, what is a YDK, Early Years Construction Dry Dock? Well, Matthew, thank you for joining us here on Star Trek New Worlds. I believe you're a first-timer. Welcome. So a YDK is a Y-era space dock. You might call it a early-era starbase. Again, just for recap, in this game, there are 4 tiers or levels of technology. The early years in the Starfleet universe are the W and Y era, arguably also M, but regardless, W and Y. The W and Y, don't ask me why they call them those. They're just the designations. So W in this game is the first tier. There is a time before that called the S, but let's just focus on W. So W and Y, those are the early era time periods and technology milestones for this game. In that time, you can build the Y-era base station, i.e. the YBS, and the Y-era space dock, which is the YDK. These have similarities to the BSM, which is the base station of the middle era, which comes after Y, and the SBM, starbase of the middle era. So the YDK is basically a starbase of the early era. And it has 8 repair capacity, has a little more robust on the EW side. And it just is able, or in this game, is able to build one Y era, or up to one Y era FF per YDK. That's what YDKs do in this particular game. Let's go on. It looks like Big Slow Target explained that. Information about Tholian and Apocalypse Fleet is now released. Oh, well, then we'll dive into that perhaps a little bit. Matthew says, thanks. I play SFB Galactic Conquest, and this seems very similar. Okay, so Matthew, SFB, Starfleet Battles. I've never played Galactic Conquest, but this is published by the same people, Amarillo Design Bureau, and this is a strategy game called Federation and Empire. It is normally played, the traditional game is a tabletop game, sort of like Axis and Allies or Risk, where you've got no fogs of war or anything like that, but we've taken the rule set of F&E, adapted it for a 4X environment, and that's why we say inspired by, because we don't use every single rule, or we adjust some of the rules to be able to best fit a 4X environment and a 4X style of play. But basically, we're using the units and the factions of the Starfleet universe, a la SFB, in a 4X strategy component. Various players will reinterpret or come up with completely new character foils for what a particular faction is, and they won't be your traditional Star Trek personas. So again, it's kind of like a role-playing war game kind of thing. Where we are. So Bill Smith says, sort of. Big Slow Target. Share them as you see fit. What rules set are you guys playing? Well, as I said, Matt, it is the Federation and Empire rules as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. And when you play this game, we have not only a published set of rules that we incorporate in the game in the sense of the approved references for any particular campaign, but also we have sort of a reference document that shows all the rule changes that we've made as we go. So, for example, there might be there are many rules that are normally applied in F&E that we don't use in the 4X game, or we reinterpret, or there is a different application of in the 4X environment because of the fact that it's a 4X game. There are also rules that don't exist in F&E that we incorporate and apply in the 4X version. So it's like house rules, if you want to call it that, for this particular campaign. Big Slow Target says Federation Empire plus homebrewed system for the 4X components. Matthew says, what does 4X component mean? I'm familiar with 2X ships. 4X. If you're ever wondering what 4X stands for, the 4X cup on New Worlds, stnewworlds.com, will help you. Again, exploration, expansion, exploitation, and extermination. I explored strange new worlds. I expanded the borders of my influence. I exploited resources and built bridges to the stars, and I exterminated those who got in my way. Forx games, as we're all familiar with, from Civilization to Stellaris to many, 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 those kind of Forx games provide you all the different components for this kind of play. Big slow target. Oh, and you've explained it again. Explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. A description of the game type of growing from a single point to take over the galaxy. And it says thanks. All right. So hopefully we reviewed that in an exhaustive fashion. All right. Let's move on to the boys in blue, the Fédération. Shall we? All right. That's right. The boys in blue are here for you. Well, I'm excited. I can already see some delighted things going on. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I was just about to say we need to get to that number 4 coffee. We've just fired a coffee. It is from, we will see here in a moment as it populates on the screen, it is from Robin J. Robin J has fired a coffee because he's talking about, he is the Federation. Let's take a quick sip of this caffeinated goodness so I am properly motivated, stimulated, and give you the energy that you need when talking about Big Blue. Probably a little bit too much expression for drinking coffee, but nonetheless, here we are. All right. Federation in full effect and stereo sound. There's a couple of very interesting things on this map just as it pops up. Let's go from left to right just to keep the anticipation going. All right, so on the far left, 9th Fleet seems to have encountered a Voodar faction on the far upper west side of the map. So this Voodar faction, we'll pull up the minor fleets here, just so we can see who's who in this rather populated zoo. So the Shadow Fleet has a YCC. Interesting to note their YCC is also a 3-6, right? 3 attack, 6 defense. YCL 3-5, 2 YDDs, right? 2 YDDs and 2 YFFs. Oh, excuse me, 4 YFFs. So 2 DDs, 4 FFs in Shadow Fleet. And so this Voodar faction is a little unfriendly to the Federation. You know, you can't be getting along with everybody. So anyways, they're not very friendly with the Federation. But Federation 9th Fleet, which is the folks that have gone over to say hi, just as a reminder, that is a Vulcan survey ship with a W-era, my goodness, W-era survey ship with a W-era frigate with a prime team. Now, for those of you, and this is for you, Matthew, you're looking at this going, the Federation, I'm not familiar with Vulcan factions in Starfleet universe. Yes, this is one example of adaptations and changes made with regards to house rules. So there are a number of factions in this game that in the earlier era of the game can play as different factions. If you want to think about Star Trek Enterprise, the television series, before the Federation was formed, obviously there were the Andorians, the Vulcans, and various other factions. Tellarites. And so there are a number of factions that you can play in the early era before you hit Y, when everything amalgamates. The Vulcans are one of those factions for the Federation. And in the early era of the game, they are one of the only factions. In fact, they are the only faction that has scout ships and EW in the early game. This is a distinct advantage because EW has distinct combat impact, and for the exploration component of this game, again 4X, scout ships and ships with scout ships, yes, so scout ships have a distinct advantage over conventional ships when conducting surveying and exploration. This in particular is a survey ship, and the WVSR, so the W-era Vulcan survey, I think it's refit, but survey ship. So 2 W-era ships, and they've encountered the Voodar. So they've encountered the Voodar. They're unhappy. The question is, they won't go to war right away because they're not hateful. But again, the spectrum being -H is hateful, unhappy, I is indifferent in the middle. F is friendly, and then H plus is happy, and that's the 5-point spectrum on our attitudes for planets in this game. So they're at the edge of their supply, it would seem. Y base right here, 1, 2, 3. So supply to 3, that's gotten them to meet the Vudar. What's going to happen there? That'll be interesting. We've got a tug up here. It looks like base building. Take away the ship. Yep, looks like they're going to build that base ever so quickly. If we go down on the west coast, get my west and east messed up here. We have the Riemann fleet with a YDK, 3 planetary ground bases, and Atlanta fleet. Now, these guys are bold, I shall say. They've got a Dreadnought, 6-8 Dreadnought, a KD4 plus at a 4-6, 3 destroyers combined as a 9-12, and then a total of 6 frigates with a combined attack and defense factor of 18 each. So, yeah, that's not a small fleet, especially for the Federation, to be able to deal with. Now, I apologize. I didn't get into fleet. I didn't get into EP fleet cap. Let's do that right now. Federation EP, 53.5. So we saw the Carnivons and the Klingons in the 60s. Mind-boggling. Just ridiculous. The Federation are in the 50s. Out of all the factions we've seen, still in the top tier, but these are guys. This is number 3 of the top 3, and there is a big delta between 53.5 and the 60s of the top 2. Quite a interesting development there. Okay, now the Federation has a total of 42 ships with 71 attack and 151 defense. Interesting to note their fleet cap's 155, so somewhere in there looks like there may be a crippled ship. So yeah, they've got this Riemann faction in the bottom southwest of their territory. They're indifferent to them, meaning that they're not happy or sad, and they just couldn't care one way or the other. But they do have a rather robust fleet, so don't mess with the best. If we go further south, you can also see this little yellow piece of goodness. Are they also part of the axis of secrecy that was previously discussed? This is a battle cruiser with a 5 attack, 5 defense ship. It'll be very interesting to see how this interacts with Federation units. It's looks like, Second Fleet. Let's see what's in Second Fleet. Does Federation Second Fleet have anything to stop this with? The answer is no. As was in previous live streams, we've gone over basically all the numbered fleets, and they're basically survey ships with a frigate escort. So the Federation doesn't really have anything to reach out and touch this thing with. Maybe there's something in Home Fleet. Let's take a look. Home Fleet. Yeah, so apparently they've got something here. So interesting to note, the color coding on some of these units. So we saw in 9th Fleet you had a Vulcan ship, right, with the white triangle, white diamond. This one has a black diamond. So you'll see here there's 2 Y command. Oh, okay, not 2 command cruisers. Come on, let's manage this properly. Okay, so we've got 1 YCC, 1 Y-era Vulcan cruiser. So this is interesting to note. This Vulcan cruiser has only 1 attack and 5 defense, but it has the black diamond. Now, the black diamond is scout functions, different from survey ships. Why is that different? Okay, survey ships, if they don't have scout functions, all they can do is survey. All they can do is explore unexplored hexes. But if you have scout functions, or in this case, this is a scout ship, there's 2 big advantages. One, if you have a scout ship and the other side doesn't, then you get a 1-point advantage on a 1-point or a 1 die shift, on combat rules. So that has a distinct advantage in combat to be able to reduce the combat effectiveness of your opponent. 2, these ships have extended reaction range. So once they're in a hex, they can provide extended reaction range to the ships stacked with them. So this ship, for example, could respond to any ship coming within, or Home Fleet could respond to any ship coming within 2 hexes of where Home Fleet is located. So there's the YCC, the YVC. There's a bunch of light cruisers here, which you can see there's 4 of them. 3 attack, 5 defense ships. We have 4 frigates, and then we have a hospital ship. Now the hospital ship has has distinct advantages when it comes to casualties in combat. We can talk about that if and when this combat occurs. But hospital ships can have some distinct advantages, especially in combat and especially when dealing with ground combat. So that's interesting. That's not a small fleet, and certainly enough to be able to deal with this little yellow visitor out of nowhere. Though all those ships can move 4 hexes, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever happens with this guy, they'll be able to be in the neighborhood, shall we say. Interesting. Okay. So other than that, what do we see? Oh, this big green thing here. What the HE double hockey sticks is this? This is the Andromedan faction in the game. The Andromedans in Starfleet universe are kind of like the Borg in the sense that they are the hugely advanced technology behemoth that comes in and just stomps the ants that is everybody else. There's a couple of different flavors of that, I suppose, in the Starfleet universe, but the Andromedans are certainly one of them. So, what in the world is this? So, I'm not familiar with the nomenclature around the naming of these ships. So, like the YVIP, the YCOB, the YMIS, I don't know what those mean because I've never dealt with Andromedans in this game. However, we can see that these 3 ships have 3 distinct characteristics. 1, they are all, the first 2, 3 attack, 3 defense ships. So these are advanced technology ships. I'm going to guess GW. The YMIS ship specifically, you can see it's bigger. It has a 5 attack, 8 defense. It has 3 S. Now, I don't know what that means. I'm going to assume, and I'll have to look it up in the rules, but the 3 would be fighter factors, but the S, what does the S mean? I'm going to have to look that up. 3S, I'm going to, does anybody know in the chat? If you do, fire it in there, and I will jump in and Missionary Cobra Viper. The Y Missionary, the Y Cobra, and the Y Viper. Okay, so those are the names of the ship. Robin says Missionary carried the satellite ships, the 3S, so 3 satellites. That's what Robin says. Let's slide over to the chat so we can all see what's going on. All right, Robin. Let us know what this. What are these satellite ships? What do they do? Big Slow Target says Viper and Cobra are satellite ships, which can be carried by a mothership. That is indicated by the S. Okay, so the Missionary is a mothership of some type, and it's carrying 3S. So are you telling me that the Viper and the Cobra, as the current counters indicate, are the 2 of the 3 S's in there? That seems kind of strange to me. Or are we saying that the Missionary can support 3 satellite ships? It seems strange that you'd put that on the counter in that way. Again, these are things I've never come across the Andromedans, so this is all stuff to find out as we go. But please put the comments in the chat and let me know. So Big Slow Target says yes. Yes to what? Yes, in that the Viper and the Cobra are 2 of the 3 satellite ships, and there's 1 more ready to come out. I'm going to say yes. Interesting. Okay, well, let's slide back into the map and talk about the other interesting components on the Federation map. All right, so what else we got here? Let's move these guys over here. Okay, so we got the Andromedans. We were talking about the Andromedans and trying to figure that out. So we'll figure that out, and I see Daniel's put in some notes there, and we'll go back and we'll review that before we move on to the next faction in the game. But we've also got the Gorn up top here, and of course we can see Vengeance Fleet is a YCC, 2 YCLs, 2 YDDs, 2 YFFs. I'm getting that right? There's not a... Oh, no, see, I got that wrong. 2 YDDs, 4 YFFs, and a tug. Interesting. They have 4 planetary ground bases and 1 YDK sitting there on their indifferent developing planet. So they're just indifferent on the edge of Federation space, couldn't give a hoot, and certainly not in any way threatened by what the Federation is bringing their way, although those Andromedans could be quite threatening. So we've got exploration happening here, and then as a reminder, they have, the Federation that is, has a wormhole and a gravity well, and they've done things with them. So the India gravity well, which is the one over here where we see the slow size class 4. Who do you think that is? If you're curious, go back to the beginning of this live stream. You'll see. So a YFF, crippled after going through its gravity well, is coming across a slow-moving size class 4 unit. Like I say, go check out the beginning of the live stream and you'll see who that is. However, beyond that, who else we got? We've got this hotel wormhole, and through the hotel wormhole, we have a YVC. That is one of those scout ships. Just as a reminder, let's go back to Home Fleet Federation. Home Fleet. You'll see the YVC here. It is a 1-5 ship, has scout functions. That's what that bad boy is. Interesting to note, when it's crippled, it has no attack factor. And it is carrying an R&D team. Why is it carrying an R&D team? What's happening on the other end of that wormhole? One might say they've encountered somebody. You wouldn't bring a valuable R&D team through a perilous wormhole unless you knew that on the other side there was a safe space. Who have they encountered? I wonder. Interesting. Well, I have a sense of who it is. We'll see what happens. If you're curious as well, hey, pop on into our Discord channel after the show, and you'll find out, because there'll be some interesting bitter banter back and forth. But yes, join us on the Coffee and Discord tier, and you too can join us for that chit chat. Speaking of which, we're one faction away from the end of this live stream, and we still got one coffee to go. Let me just take a quick sip to wet my whistle. Oh, yeah. All right, let's slide back and answer that question about those Andromedans, because I can see the answer is floating in the chat. All right. So Daniel has answered this by saying 3S means it carries 3 size class 4 ships inside. Holy Dinah. I'm not familiar with the Andromedans. This is crazy. It can teleport them out for combat. Are you kidding me? Teleport them outside? I gotta read up on the Andromedans. That's crazy. Okay, so that means it has 3 size class 4 ships. So based on that stack that we were looking at, and we're talking about the Viper and the Cobra. So the Cobra being the slightly bigger ship, we'll call them like frigates and destroyers. So Vipers, frigates, Cobras, destroyers. So 3, 3, 4, 4 ships. And he's got 3 of them. So is it 2 3 ships and 1 4 ship? That would kind of make sense to me, but who knows? It'll be interesting to find out. And out of those 3 S's, there's only 2 out. So there's 1 reserve? Maybe? So confusing. So ambiguous. Okay, so what else we got here? Bill says, Missionary has a displacement device. Are transported out from inside the Missionary when time to leave, and they get transported back on. Interesting. Big Slow Target says, note, they are within striking distance of Federation homeworld. This was particularly alarming for the Klingons. Meaning the Klingons encountered these Andromedans? Question mark? Squeeze me, baking powder? Very interesting to note. So a couple things to note here. Like when we're talking about the macro of the game. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. The last coffee has been fired. Well, it doesn't have to be the last coffee. Don't let me get ahead of you. But we have reached our goal for today. 4 coffees. Bam, bam, bam. With a bam. 4 coffees. Taking a big sip of caffeinated goodness. Here we go. Thank you to the BST, the Big Slow Target, for that coffee goodness. Photon fired. Paul says, yes, they fired drones at me, and the Klingons encountered the Andromedans. Okay, so like I said, we got a number of factions here. So in a previous live stream, the Borax encountered an AI faction that were presented as the yellow, those yellow auxiliary cruisers, right? So we encountered those guys, and there was like an AI element to it. They tried to take over my computers, or the computers of the Borak faction, and so that was interesting. But they're not the Andromedans, because they're different counters, different faction. So we've got the what other players have identified as the axis of secrecy, which are those yellow counters. But I've encountered those yellow counters, and they were not necessarily that faction. And then you got the Andromedans, who are displaying characteristics that are very similar to what I encountered with my Raiders. So it's just very interesting. Very interesting. So there's a lot of non-player character factions floating around this game. You might say auxiliary threats beyond the player factions. So very interesting, very interesting, very interesting. Okay, so back to the chat. We've got I'm serious about learning from these miners just how their obviously advanced shipyards crank out and support these big ass fleets. Fair. There's a supply. There's a component around what your ships or how many ships you can support, which is our fleet cap. And these minor factions are able to pump out and support ships or fleets that are much bigger than what the player factions could do with the same resources. So interesting to note. Friends, we make friends, Robin says. There goes the suspense. Dun dun dun. Or I gotta find that soundbite or that suspenseful music that the original series always used to play. It's very good. Daniel Eastland, I wonder where we have seen strange transport technology before. Yes, well. Paul says, they fired drones on me. Yes, the Klingons encountered the Andromedans, says BST. The yellow ones attacked me then. Juggies, ? Says Bill. And Big Slow Target, axis of secrecy includes the yellow counters and Andromedans, as well as the Kzinti and Paravians. We aren't sure how. Interesting. We aren't sure how. I've got this big heart thing in the way. I can't move it. The first two fit together. Interesting. Okay. Interdasting. Okay. Well, we've talked about the Federation, hopefully in enough detail for you. And let's dive into the next faction on the map. The last faction for today. The faction with, shall we say, the most regressive economy in the game. Let's talk about the Borak. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Borak. It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's talk about EP and fleet cap. So you can see we've talked about, again, economies in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s, and the Borak are at 37. I'm not happy about it. Nope. No, sir. Not happy about it. Not one way. No. But that's just the facts. That's the facts, ma'am. As Friday used to say. That's the way it is. So, Borak, 37. Fleet cap. The Borak have, we've talked about 30s and 40s and 50 ships. No. Borak have 15. 1-5. With a total attack factor of 43 and a defense of 101. So, defense factor is pretty good, considering the number of ships. And the attack factor is not bad, considering the number of ships. So what does that tell us? Well, basically, I got a bunch of cruiser hulls floating around, not a lot of frigates to support. Why is that? Borak frigates and destroyers suck. Like, really are bad. They have terrible attack factors. Decent defense factors, but terrible attack factors. So they're just not a ship that the Borak tend to build a lot of, or at least at this stage of the game. So, with that said, what do we got? Let's take a look. Okay, so top end of the map, we see that we have a Klingon Gorn faction, thank you very much, with 5 planetary ground bases. We have a YDK and a fleet, which, once we pull it up, you can see here, has a YDN. That's right, big, bad YDN. 6 attack, 8 defense. YCC, a total of 4 YCLs, 6 YDDs, and 12 frigates. That fleet alone is bigger than the Borak fleet. 12 frigates, 6 destroyers. That's 18 ships just with the size class 4 ships. That's more than the 15 total ships in the Vorak Navy. Come on. Oh my God. And then they got the cruisers, the command cruiser, and the YDN. Come on now. Come on. All right. Anyways, I'm not going to laugh too hard at that. Okay, so we've got also a Romulan faction you can see here. They are indifferent currently. Not happy or sad, just indifferent. They have they have a dreadnought, which is one of the better dreadnoughts in the game. It is a 7 attack, 8 defense. The Vulture. It's a great ship. They also have a Warbird, which is their cruiser. They have 3 destroyers, which are the Hawks, and then 6 snipes. So again, just doing the math, we've got a total of 11 ships. 11 ships, close to, but not quite the size of the Vorak fleet. But I would say combat effective-wise, they are probably better than the Vorak fleet as it stands. It's so sad. So sad. Okay. With that said, let's take a look. So at the top end, we have obviously the Gorn we talked about. We've got some exploration happening on the edges of supply. That's good. A little encounter here with the YSR. Not to worry about that. It was an event that occurred that crippled it. No encounters with bad people. So that ship's got to go get repaired. Other than that, you can see some exploration happening on the upper east side. Down south, we have a base in the midst of being constructed with a supplementary tug providing extended supply to YSR and large exploration ships. On the west side, we have a White Dragon sitting here on top of this beautiful D wormhole. And then, of course, we've got the Romulans that we've encountered. Now you can see here we've got a number of cruisers being employed in their most useless way possible as exploration survey ships. However, that being said, it did work. We encountered, or uncovered, I should say, a colony, which is great. But they are, generally speaking, not the most effective, very ineffective survey ships, but we have them in the area, so we're using them that way. A diplomat on its way to the Romulans, as well as a commercial convoy to establish trade. So we'll see how that goes as we go forward. But not much to say here. We've got a couple of turns ago, we talked about the BIE, the Vorak Incorporate. Was it BIE? I'm getting confused because we got the Hicks in the in Splintered Will, but it's a BIE. So the Vorak Incorporated Empire. And so the Vorak Incorporated Empire is a corporate entity designed to leverage and grow economically and scientifically. We're all about growth and the continuing expansion of our knowledge and economy. We have a predominantly economic and scientific focus, not necessarily military, which is sort of mapped out in our fleet composition. But the early stages of the game really were about building out the scientific components of the economy. That, as we saw in contrast to the other factions in the game, wasn't working out well. So we had an encounter with space sharks, which were just a monster, that was very difficult to deal with because we didn't have a military pre-built. So after the encounter with the space sharks, there was, shall we say, a shift in governance. The board was fired, and a new CEO was hired from the security services. So from a role-playing perspective, the shall we say, we had a change in corporate direction and leadership to drive towards a more security-focused and expansionist perspective. The focus on technology is important, but if the economy isn't there to support the scientific growth, then we've got problems. So the exploration wasn't happening at pace. We've since shifted that focus with a shipbuilding plan of building the survey ships with prime teams. We've started to populate those. You can see I've got a total of 4 of those out since our shift in focus. And we can only build 1 per year, so that's 8 years worth of that shift for all intents and purposes. We've built a substantial cruiser fleet, which helped deal with not only the space sharks, but a visit from one of those Axis factions. And we dealt with those. And so there is it's going to be a little bit slow rolling here as we sort of begin to course correct. But already the course correction has started to happen. The growth from barely 30 to 37 has happened, and we're continuing to grow. You can see there's at least one EP here that's just outside of supply. Once we get that, we'll be at 38. And the goal is to sort of, in an accelerated fashion, really grow the economy as best we can. Obviously, you can only find what you find. Grow the economy as best we can to be able to get out there and do stuff. Now, that being said, I have a sense of where, obviously, on my map, I know where I am, but I have a sense of where other factions are. And so I'm hoping that we'll encounter some other factions and be able to establish some trade, because the BIE, the Borak Incorporated Empire, is really more focused around, again, exploration, expansion, and economic development. So I want to meet other factions so we can begin trade and establish those trade routes and really grow into, as opposed to the Klingons of the previous game, really grow into an important economic keystone of whatever is going to be whatever this game is going to look like. A notable difference in strategy and tactics versus other games, at least for me as a player. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that rolls out going forward and how we interact with other players when we encounter them. Are they going to be hostile, or are they going to be like the Federation? Robin talking about how he's going to make friends with everybody. I think the boys in blue should get together, the Borak and the Federation. Hey? Huh? Well, I don't know. I don't know where the Federation are. I don't know where anybody is, really. But I have a sense of where I think some people are. So hopefully, maybe I'll bump into somebody. I don't know. I still don't know really where everybody is relative to me. So we'll have to figure that out. I have an idea, but we got to confirm those suspicions, shall we say. So we'll see how that works. As you can see, we're sort of expanding in all directions based on the supply picture. Basically, north, east, south, west. And we'll just see how that goes as we go forward. So what do you think? Let's slide back to the main. I see lots of chat. Let's slide back to the chat and figure out what's happening next. All right. So as I slide into the chat, Big Slow Target, I believe in your right to keep secrets. I feel like I've missed something here. Paul, Robin, where are your troops, and can we go there and count them? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. Bill says the Gorn could take the Borak. Totally could, if they wanted to. Well, the distance would be the issue, but they could really mess up my day. They could really mess up my day if the Gorn wanted to. I think because of the economy, I would be able to fight back. But it would be an incredibly painful experience if the Gorn decided to go to war with me. That would be bad. Don't get any ideas, Daniel. Let's see here. Big Slow Target. I believe in your right to keep secrets. I also think everyone should know there is a cost to keeping secrets. Only you know if it's worth the cost. Who's that targeted to? Maybe Paul? Paul, Khazintis are one of the weakest races to start. But by the time I meet, I will be able to defend myself, he says. Okay. Possibly more. Speed 20 drones and carriers, I wish, Paul says, because Paul's the Khazinti in this game. Big Slow Target, just having an entire fleet on a border. Just having an entire fleet on a border will you... I love grammar. It's always wonderful. Just having an entire fleet on a border, you will meet someone might give a significant initial advantage, even for a smaller overall fleet. Surprise is a force multiplier. Absolutely. Again, having the fleet before you need it is a real thing, which is why the Gorn could freaking stomp the Borak right now. Paul says, I have one more ship than the Borak. Yay! Exciting. George Forknell says, the Zin are small, but play with a lot of heart. Might be a good partner to team with. Hey. There we go. Big Slow Target says, yes, sort of like raising a Siberian tiger kitten in your living room. Pew pew, question mark. And will Will should have been there where... What? English people. Will should have been where above. My goodness. Squish the Borak, Jim says. Of course, yes. I love the hate/love to take me out. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. I look forward to interacting with all of you wonderful factions. But again, the BIE, different role play, different character, different sort of persona. Whereas the Klingons of the previous game in New Worlds was they were fashioned after the Warhammer 40k faction of the Alpha Legion of the Horus Heresy or the pre-Horus Heresy era. They were secretive, they were duplicitous, they were backstabbery, and they were aggressive, seeking to establish and maintain positions of dominance over their neighbors. The Borak are not that. In fact, in both games, I'm trying to keep things simple. I've adopted a very similar approach, but they're evolving in different directions. The Borak are very much the corporate example of commercial and capitalistic expansion. The Hicks of the Splintered Will campaign are a little different. Very similar starting point, very similar root motivations, but they are presenting in a different way. And I think that's fundamentally going to be because of the nature of those games and the nature of the interactions that we have. Again, you can start off from the same spot, but based on the dynamic interactions with the environment, they're going to evolve in different ways. And certainly the Splintered Will campaign for the Hydrons, i.e. the Hicks, is very different economically, like just developing in a very different way versus the BIE. The BIE, we're talking about lean startup here. This is what the BIE are, a lean startup organization. They have a lot of sort of the apparatus of a big corporation, but this is a lean startup operation. So minimum viable product and deliver value early. We'll see what happens. Okay. All right. With that said, thank you very much, everybody, for such a wonderful day today. This has been a great recap. What do you think, if you stayed with us this long, what do you think of the new production? The production is very similar, obviously, to what was before. Slight changes. What do you think of the way it looks, the way it sounds? Are there any bugs that you notice? Please let me know, because I may not have seen them or caught them. Please let me know what and if you see anything that you would like to change. Or ideas that you have that I can incorporate in the future. What do you think about the campaign? Is there any particular faction that you are looking at, that you are thinking about, that should be doing something? I know Jim would like everybody to kill the Borak, but you let me know. You let me know what you think. And of course, if you've lasted this long, an hour and 37 minutes into this live stream, then please throw in the chat 1H37 minutes, and I will see that, and we'll be able to comment on those comments. So if you're here this long, please hit that like button, consider subscribing, and if you like what we do here, head over to that QR code and or the link in the corner, and you can join us at the Coffee and Discord tier, where we will chat, bitter banter, and discuss on our Discord channel all the different exciting things about the campaign that are going on, which we will do after this live stream. So with that said, I will see you next week. And until then, bye for now.